What is this?
Other humans are there to help me, and if I lose, I can only really get angry at the computer or at myself for not being good enough. But matchmaking is not a fixed challenge that I can benchmark myself against. The skill required to hit each rank is continually changing. Plus, if I get better in matchmaking, then it simply pits me against better players again. How am I supposed to feel like I'm improving if the goalposts are always moving? Of course, matchmaking isn't there to reward you for getting better.
Today I watched this video about a woman acting like a dog. It kinda turned me on. Would you want to try it?
Says Forsen. Edward looks at Forsen and thinks to herself, what the fuck? Nanny left long ago. He really is insane.
Sure that you're always challenged to games that you're just as likely to lose as you are to win. The only people who are permitted to win more than they're losing are, literally, the best players in the world. And cheaters and smurfs. There's always been cheaters, but when you add value to being the best, it makes the problem so much worse. Although it's a big issue, I'm not going to talk about it that much because I think the problem of cheaters speaks for itself. Smurfing, I think, is more of a grey area. There are some people who are downright doing it to crush the other team, but then there are others who just want to mess about with friends, or players who play at varying abilities depending on how competitive they're feeling on that day. But again, it's another problem that matchmaking struggles to deal with. But it makes me wonder how much of my terror...
No more imagining, alright? We moved on. No more thinking, no more imagining.
33% win rate is because there are 5 slots on the enemy team for potential cheaters or smurfs, compared with just 4 on mine. I jumped on a casual server earlier, and it wasn't long before the cheating and smurfing accusations started. And not even about me, the game has always had a toxicity and cheating problem. But again, the matchmaking system exacerbates.
That's how it looked planting the bomb back in the day? I don't remember this at all.
Toxicity and cheating.
Awesome, I donated the matchmaking and it timestamped it. Can you start from beginning, if not -10 SAG?
Unfortunately, no. I cannot. I can.
Matchmaking helped the game to reunite Counter-Strike's player base and to propel the game to the massive player numbers that it enjoys today. But I think that matchmaking has been a double-edged sword and has come with downsides, including burnout and toxicity, which might even contribute to the game's eventual downfall. In short, matchmaking is more than just a game mode for CSGO. It has influenced every aspect of the game and has shaped it into what it is today. Just so we're all on the same page, when I say matchmaking, what I mean is when the game puts you in a match with and against players of a similar skill to yourself. In theory, this should lead to fun, balanced games where you're useful to your team, but you aren't good enough to destroy the other team on your own. But in practice, we all know this isn't always the case. I'll get the obvious out of the way now. You don't have to play matchmaking. You can stick to casual modes, which don't consider your skill level when finding a server for you. Apparently. You can still join custom game modes and servers too. But there's no escape from it. Matchmaking's influence is everywhere. It's changed the mindset of its player base and the trajectory the game has taken. Let me explain what Counter-Strike was like without matchmaking of any kind, because it's easy to forget that a lot of the game's player base has only been around for a matter of months or a year or so. Back in my day, before CSGO was released in 2012, playing Counter-Strike, the definition of playing Counter-Strike, was to jump on a random server and to play with and against randoms, most of whom had an incredibly low level of ability. Partly because nobody was that good at it.
If you were in any way competitive or whatever, you would go to the fucking scrims channel, MI or RC and whatever, and find like equal skill team, like low, high tier, mid, whatever. Or there were websites for it too. So this guy was just a casual to begin with.
The game, and also partly because they were all gaming on laptops with trackpads at about 10 FPS. When you first started playing the game, you'd expect to get stomped by the better players, and there would always be 1 or 2 players who sat top of the scoreboard by far. Getting a single kill on those people was a huge achievement. But, within dozens of hours of practice, you too could become that person, and you were rewarded for your effort by becoming a god on public servers. All would bow down to you, your team would be happy to have you. When you were the one team swapped to balance the match, the balance of the whole match would change.
Good day, Mr.
And you regularly saved the day in epic situations where you had to hold your own against 4 or so enemies. You knew your teammates were spectating you, and you knew you were going to do them proud. Once in a while, you might bump into somebody else who's good at the game, and you'd have a fierce rivalry to determine which of you was the best. But matchmaking isn't like...
Back. How? Oh.
It's so annoying.
Like that. It rates how good you are and then puts you on a server with lots of people of the same ability. I remember when a matchmaking feature such as this was rare, but these days it's hard to find a multiplayer game that doesn't have it. The jump to matchmaking is fun. After years of thinking I was a god at the game, it was refreshing to be able to find players who are something of a challenge. And indeed, if I want to get better at the game, matchmaking is the perfect system for finding balanced, potentially winnable games. Before matchmaking, it was such a time-consuming hassle to get a competitive game. You had to hop on IRC and shout your skill level until somebody replied. And if you were lucky, you'd all connect to a server and have a good game. But let's just say, the skill of a team that deemed itself to be low-skilled varied greatly. For something more official than IRC matches, you could sign up to a league, but games would often have to be planned days or weeks in advance. Looking back at it, it's a miracle we got any matches at all. So I have a lot to thank matchmaking for. If I want a challenge, it's great to simply press a button and to have the game do all the hard work for me. Without a doubt, matchmaking has helped the game more than it has hindered. It's impossible to imagine the game being as popular as it is today without the feature. And the average skill level in Counter-Strike has gone up immensely thanks to matchmaking. You only have to hop on a casual server to find that even the least skilled of players have aim and skill that would have put them near the top of the game back in 2013. Matchmaking has been a key reason for people to play the game, and to return to it again and again, getting them invested in the challenge of reaching the top. It's the ideal system for nurturing and fueling the competitive scene that the game is known for today, and it has helped idolise the pro players and to give the player base respect for the talent that they display. But there are also downsides to matchmaking. Namely, if matchmaking is the reason for you to play the game, then once you tire of it, it becomes the reason to stop. Every player's gone through a stage where they want to climb to the top of the ranks in CSGO. But what happens when you reach the top? Or more specifically, when you stop getting better? Because it will inevitably happen sooner or later, depending on how much time and effort you can invest into the game. This burnout would probably have happened without matchmaking, but the feature definitely accelerates the process. Once you've figured out the system and have discovered its limitations, and yours, the novelty can wear off. And it may leave you enjoying the game less than you did before you started climbing the ranks in the first place. Over the years I've seen suggestions being made about adding more ranks or resetting everything so we can start again and so on, but those people just need to accept that they've been there, done that and need to move on if it's no longer doing it for them. I'm known for Counter-Strike, but I'm not actually a big competitive gamer. I think I grew up in an era when players were used to winning more than they lost. You know, single player games, co-op games, stuff like that. It's probably why I don't like a system that makes me lose about 2/3 of the games that I play. I only have to talk to younger people to realise how much things have changed. A lot of younger gamers haven't ever played a single player game. For some people, gaming is about playing against other players, which is crazy to me, having grown up where multiplayer was just a fraction of the experience. I like a challenge, but I prefer a fixed level of challenge that I can benchmark my progress against. Playing against AI is great for this. In Left 4 Dead, I can feel how much better I am now than I used to be. I play a lot of Age of Empires 2 at the moment too, but again, I play it with friends against AI. It can still be a challenge, but it's less toxic because other humans are there to help me, and if I lose, I can only really get angry at the computer or at myself for not being good enough. But matchmaking is not a fixed challenge that I can benchmark myself against. The skill required to hit each rank is continually changing. Plus, if I get better in matchmaking, then it simply pits me against better players again. How am I supposed to feel like I'm improving if the goalposts are always moving? Of course, matchmaking isn't there to reward you for getting better. It's there to ensure that you're always challenged to games that you're just as likely to lose as you are to win. The only people who are permitted to win more than they're losing are, literally, the best players in the world. And cheaters and smurfs. There's always been cheaters, but when you add value to being the best, it makes the problem so much abilities to deal with. But it makes me wonder how much of my terrible 33% win rate is because there are 5 slots on the enemy team for potential cheaters or smurfs, compared with just 4 on mine. I jumped on a casual server earlier, and it wasn't long before the cheating and smurfing accusations started. And not even about me. The game has always had a toxicity and cheating problem, but again, the matchmaking system exacerbates it. And even when players are behaving themselves, there's still the toxicity, because it's competitive, and stuff is at stake. When ranks and wins are on the line, and when people value these things more than having fun from the game, then of course people are going to become toxic, angry, frustrated. And anybody who isn't taking it as seriously, or who isn't having an incredible game, is quickly seen as being the problem. So those are the problems with matchmaking, and I don't think they're things that can be remedied. It's simply the route that the game has chosen to go down. It's what it is now, and there is no going back. And as much as I can complain about it, I do think it was the right choice. Valve has chosen to make Counter-Strike a hyper-competitive game with a heavy focus around the esports scene. They've devised anti-cheat and anti-toxicity measures to counter the problems which come along with it, but these can only go so far, and people who are fed up with the system's shortcomings are eventually going to leave and go somewhere else. And I've accepted this. The game is not what it used to be for me back when I first played it between 2004 and 2007, but rather than to complain too much, I've learned to accept what it has become, and to appreciate aspects about the current experience. I do still enjoy what the game is, in moderation, and rather than to complain that it isn't what it used to be, I found other experiences to fill that hole. And the sooner you do the same, the sooner you can make peace with Counter-Strike's shortcomings. And boy, did that rant I made about the game in 2008 age well.
Not sure what rant that was, but I mean, matchmaking is important. It makes for a better game when it's, you know, fair, when it's more equal skill level. It's not fun to win when you're facing 11-year-olds, right? And it's not fun to play versus professional, in my case, the only ones who would beat me, right? Professional players, because you would get fucking 15-0. So matchmaking is very, very extremely important.